Welcome to Stream Team Anglers, and thank you for joining us today as we talk in depth about Frog's Fanny Fly Treatment. So what is it that you think about when you think about a fly treatment? You think about dry flies, right? But as it says on the bottle, it's a double duty fly treatment. So let's talk about that a little bit. We're going to first start off with putting Frog's Fanny Fly Treatment on nymphs. And why would you put Frog's Fanny on a nymph? Well, it's to create an air bubble that is actually a natural sustaining air bubble on a hatching and emerging insect. So let's start off with these big patch rubber leg stonefly nymphs. This one is not treated. I'm just going to drop it in the tank here so you can get a look at it. What it looks like without Frog's Fanny on it. You know, it's pretty normal looking. You know, it's a great fly as it is, but it can be better. So let's take another patch rubber leg stonefly and Frog's Fanny. I'm going to pinch the body out because I don't want to put the powder all over the body and create a whole big air bubble over the whole body. I want to control that by putting it just on the thorax and the head of the fly. And let's drop this fly in the tank here so you can see the difference. Alright, so now as I hold it up, you can actually see there's an air bubble around that nymph, right around where we brushed it. And again, that'll stay on there until a fish grabs a hold of it, slimes it. Let's pull it out of the water and drop it back in there one more time so you can see that it stays on there. But let's bring the other nymph up there, the first one we put in there, so you can compare the two differences, the air bubble and no air bubble. Oftentimes that's the difference between catching fish and not catching fish, is putting that air bubble on there. So let's put the nymphs aside and let's talk about the dry flies. So I take this elk hair caddis. It's the same application as we did with the air bubble. We're just going to take that brush out there and brush it into the fibers of that fly. Just get it underneath and around, get it all through the fibers of that fly so that we can float it and keep it dry. And incidentally, that application can be put on a fly straight out of a box like this one, or if it's been slimed and soaked by a fish, all you got to do is reapply that powder onto that fly. It'll revive it and you're ready to go back and float it just like a natural. Let's go ahead and drop that in there. And actually, you can see it floating on the top of the water like a cork, right on the top of the fibers of that fly. You can skate that fly across the current just like a natural. So, but let's show you what happens when that fly gets sucked underneath the water. Let it go and it'll pop up like a cork. Let's try that one more time. And it pops up like a cork. And for a third time, let's just try that one more time. Floats right back to the surface, right on the tips of its hackle, and right on the wings, just like it's supposed to. And again, that will stay on there generally till a fish grabs a hold of it, slimes it. Once again, just reapply the powder and you're back to fishing. So over the years of fishing up in the Great Lakes tributaries for steelhead and lake run browns and also the big salmon, we've found that as we're using egg patterns, that we can put Frog's Fanny on them, like this egg pattern right here, which is just a little McFly foam egg. We brush that powder really good around the outer part of that fly for the purpose of putting that air bubble around it. Now what you're going to see is that by putting that air bubble around it, it makes that egg look like it has a shine around it, and it has actually a membrane around it. What we also do is we add a split shot to that egg about 4 inches above the fly, and it'll actually suspend that off the bottom. Now you can see that the buoyancy of that Frog's Fanny on that McFly egg, and with that split shot you can actually dance that across the bottom anywhere from 4 to 6 inches above the bottom of the river where the natural eggs are going to be floating by as they're deposited by the salmon. That has been a real fish catcher for us. So you can also put it on your egg patterns. That got me thinking. So down here in the Smokies we have some of the world's best caddis hatches. And with that, you have emergers. And sometimes it's difficult to get that emerger fly to be right in the surface film where they need to have to where they're going up and they're sipping emergers in the surface film. So fishing it on an egg got me thinking, well, why not put that on a caddis pupa emerger, follow it up with a little split shot, and drop it behind a large dry fly like this big stimulator. So what happens? Well, let's take a look at the tank, and this is probably one of the coolest things I've seen with Frog's Fanny so far. So you'll actually see with that split shot down there, dropped off the back end of that stimulator, it's actually suspending up, and you can adjust the weight to get closer and closer to the surface. So just like a natural insect hatching and coming up, you got that caddis pupa emerger with the Frog's Fanny on it, and you're actually able to suspend that right up close to the surface film. So now let's go on to the next fly, and we've saved the best for last. This is a heavy-weighted barbell fly, actually supposed to be fished under the water, subsurface. But what I actually do in using Frog's Fanny on a big marabou fly like this is I brush it really good into that marabou tail, and I create a topwater smallmouth bass fly. You just brush it really good into that marabou and watch what happens. So we're going to drop this down into the tank. Watch as it just comes back to that surface, and it'll pop right up and float. Let's do that one more time. And it's floating up there on the top, and you can skate that across the top of the water. Drives the smallmouth nuts. Again, that's Frog's Fanny. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to know more about Frog's Fanny and other applications, go to streamteamanglers.com, check us out on our website. Come on down to the Smoky Mountains for a guided trip, and I'll teach you more about how to use and where to use Frog's Fanny. And if a guided trip's not your thing and you want to learn more about fly fishing, sign up for one of our classes. We'd be glad to take you out and teach you the ropes. Thanks again.